So, hello there, I'm Danielle Moore, and I am the lead singer or the front woman in the biggest band you've never heard of, Crazy P. I also DJ, and yeah, mainly a bit of a viber.
Hi, this is Jim, Ron Bass Jam from Crazy P, ready to answer your questions.
So my name's Chris Todd, and I play in the band Crazy P. I play guitar and a little bit of keyboards, and alongside Jim and Danielle, do much of the production and the writing within the outfit as well. Yeah, that's me.
Naivety. Innocence. Your view of the world.
Weirdly enough, I mean, I actually kind of quite like going to school. I kind of benefited from the routine of it, and my mum and dad were, I wouldn't say workaholics, but they were working class and they had to work long hours. And so therefore I was kind of left to my own devices quite a lot, which meant a lot of playing out with my mates, chalking up tennis courts on the avenue, playing lots of Kirby. So I think that was the start of my kind of creative spirit.
Playing outside for me, that was all my sort of childhood. A lot of my childhood memories were just sort of the joys of just sort of larking about outside, which when I go back home now to my mum's, where she still lives in the same house that I grew up, it's kind of like it's a different world, everywhere. I don't know whether people aren't having as many kids around there, but there's just no kids out, and maybe they're just all playing video games or something. But yeah.
Well, in terms of when I got a little bit into my teenage years, a mate of mine used to work in I grew up in North Wales, and a mate of mine, Phil, used to work in a record shop in Chester, called Global Grooves, and he used to commute from where I lived over to there to work on the weekend. So he used to bring loads of stuff back with him, and we just used to go around his house and plough through it, basically. So it was our little window into music, because it was quite rural where I grew up. So it was he was our connection to what was going on. So that's how, really.
I didn't really like my dad's music choice, but my mum was very much into her soul. She was rock and roller. She used to go out dancing every Tuesday and Thursday night to rock and roll club, and she was kind of the one that I suppose I kind of got my musicality from. She took me to see Chic at the Manchester Apollo when I was 10. I always used to remember being able to just tune into Sunset Radio, which was a real kind of institution, an alternative radio. It was pirate radio, I believe, until it got bought out, and that was my kind of insight into alternative music, really. And I was probably about 14, 15. And also where I lived, this place called Radcliffe, which is probably a town that you'd negotiate to avoid. But there was this club there called Benny's Nightclub, and it was somewhere that people from all over Manchester used to go to, and they played quality soul music, and it used to stay open till 8 in the morning because they used to serve breakfast at 6 a.m. And there was mirrors everywhere, and people used to write messages on the mirrors well, I won't. There was some quite rude ones, but it was just "Hey, I'm watching you" with the blue dress on, and then you'd have to kind of look around. That was my kind of early introduction to music, and then from there on, I met a group of people quite by chance. In a venue in Manchester called the Shambles, which is a pub in Shambles Square near Selfridges, and this older guy was looking across at me, and we ended up dating, and he was the first person that took me to the Hacienda. And that really, I would say, was where I'd say my real kind of musical awakening began. I was always into music. I always danced, but that was where I really kind of connected to people who felt the same way about music. It was a massive part of my life.
It's from friends. Like when I was at school, it was like, so what your mates are listening to, or because I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so I didn't have that sort of kind of older brother, older sister kind of, hearing what they're into. And a lot of my friends who did have older siblings would get into the music that their brothers or sisters were into, and I would, by virtue of knowing them as mates, sort of get this music second or third hand. So that was one way. But yeah, I think just from friends and kind of, there's a lot of influence, a little bit of influence from my parents as well. Like my dad's a really keen guitarist, and when I was younger, I was about 13, 14, I just started playing guitar, and he was quite a big influence then, because he kind of showed me a lot of the sort of blues and kind of folk stuff that he was into, kind of filtered into my head as well. And some of his records as well, like the Beach Boys and things like that. So, yeah, sort of a right mixture, really.
It goes back to your first record, I guess, doesn't it? The first record I ever bought was Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic by the Police. And I used to love the Police.
Yeah.
So I guess trading it back to that, I thought they were the business. So I'll say the Police.
Absolutely, 100% Prince. From watching Purple Rain when I was like a young teenager, and that really fortunate to kind of have that quality pop music as a teenager. Everyone from Prince to The Cure, Madonna was making superb music. You had alternative indie music, you had the Smiths, such a range of accessible pop music. I remember in 1990 going to see Prince at Main Road, the old Man City ground, and afterwards went to the Hacienda, and Graham Park played Raspberry Beret as his last tune, and I remember just thinking that I felt like I was in heaven, whatever heaven is. It was amazing. So Prince was really, I tried to dress like him. Do you know what I mean? He was my everything.
The first artist that I took notice of, which I still respect and listen to and admire, was probably Prince. There's probably other ones, but he's sort of obviously pops up there as quite a big sort of influence and character. I think when I was 14, I came across Purple Rain, and that was my little gateway into Prince, and I've been a massive fan ever since, really.
Well, yeah, I think my first musical memory would have been that trip to the Apollo in Manchester with my mum and about 15 of the mates. And I remember we got on like a big minibus from Radcliffe to the Manchester Apollo. And there's little bits of it that I remember, but I remember we had pretty cheap seats. So we were kind of up in the like the mezzanine bit, the circle, the seated bit at the top, yeah. And quite near the back, but you could still see everything. And I remember there were lots of like Rastafarians, and Mum said, I said, "Mum, what's that smell?" And she said, "It's something called weed." And that was when everyone was just smoking weed, and it was very much a strong smell and memory and I just remember everyone looking really relaxed and just really loving it and happy and clapping, and I remember the performance was superb. that really was my first musical memory. I was very lucky. Like I say, I was only 10.
I played music in school. I was a trombonist and piano, and I guess my earliest memory when I just think cold on it is probably like playing my trombone in school, just sort of music lessons, orchestra concerts, that sort of thing. That's about as far back as I go. I'm sure there's something more profound, deeper back, but unfortunately my memory doesn't allow me to recall it.
One of the first records I remember listening to was it was just a Telstar compilation, I think, of Beach Boys' 20 Golden Greats, and it was one of my dad's records, and I just used to cane it all the time. I remember being 6 and I just play it end to end. I know most of the lyrics off off all 20 of those tracks, and they're all classic Beach Boys stuff, like California Girls and I Get Around and all those old really kind of surf tunes before they kind of went a bit more psychedelic.
I mean, at that stage, I was a bit gothy, and I used to love the Cult and the Mission, and I guess getting into, because I was classically trained, coming out of that was my first experience of rock, of sort of, and I thought, and they were a big. I went to see them. Their first bands I went to see, and they were a big inspiration in terms of picking up, guitars and making something other than what I was doing at school.
Well, I would have to say Prince again. I mean, I think with retrospect, then someone like Grace Jones I just feel like she's got an incredible ability to write incredible lyrics. But I have been lucky enough to see her live too a few times, and it's almost like I feel like that's her alter ego on stage. I imagine she's a very strong woman. And I think some people find her quite intimidating, but I believe that's because she's not always 100% comfortable in certain environments, and so I think that the stage is her platform to completely be herself, and I love the way that she articulates that.
I mean, there's a few. I mean, I'll pick out the Stone Roses as another one, as well as Prince. I think Stone Roses actually, as a young teenage lad from the north, were massively influential in putting me in a mindset or to want to be in a band, basically, because these were just like 4 normal working class lads, and they made it seem something real. A realistic thing that you could do, because they were just sort of there's something real about them, and they were from my part of the world, and I just loved the music. So that first Stone Roses album was just hugely, massively influential. It was, I was just starting to get into sort of making my own music, and I had a little 4-track recorder, and I was basically just copying Stone Roses songs and inadvertently, not necessarily consciously, but they were all kind of pale imitations of that Manchester sound, and I still love that album.
Well, I mean, it was what happened was when we kicked off. The first live gig we ever did, it was me and Toddy, and behind this bank of samplers. And I mean, it wasn't quite Orbital, but and we did that. We did one live show like that, and after it, we were just like, God, it doesn't work because we play a lot of music, and there's a lot of music in our stuff. So just standing behind a bank of equipment, it doesn't quite work. And I think we had a conversation where we thought, look, if we want to do it live, why don't we actually recreate what we're making with people as opposed to just like sort of hide behind the equipment. So about the same time we met Danielle socially, and I guess you could say it was synergy there. I mean, it was just like one of those things. We started working with her, and really the rest of the band members, the same band members that we've got today, they're all friends and colleagues, you know, friends first. So Tim, the bass player, I went to school with. Matt, the drummer, we met when we were in uni at Nottingham. You know, so we've had the same lineup all the way. But I can't, you know, who specifically said it. I think we had a conversation where we thought, look, let's make a band. You know, samplers aren't very interesting, and we're not very interesting. we need somebody at the front.
Yeah.
And they entered Danielle. So yeah.
And then I met them at a house party in Manchester, and I'd already been DJing at like after parties, and yeah, when we were in a higher state of mind, I'd always take to the decks. And apparently, and I don't remember this distinctly, but Jim and Toddy do. I was DJing in my bedroom at the after party house, which was where I lived. And Jim and Toddy said they came to the door, and I was apparently entertaining a room full of people and doing Shirley Bassey impressions. And they came to me and said, look, we're looking for a singer. Do you want to come for an audition? And I was like, yeah. Which, when you're in a certain state of mind, yeah, you know, you can do anything. I'd not really sung before. But weirdly, went for the audition, and that's when we wrote our first song together. It kind of happened like that.
I think once we'd started collaborating with Danielle, we realised that was the way forward, and if we were going to do gigs, we needed to get a band together.
Yeah.
And we did that fairly quickly, within a couple of years of releasing stuff, and the lineup has stayed the same pretty much, and it's all mates from college.
Favourite venue? Sugar Club's great. I mean, we played at Coco before it was, you know, before it got damaged, and that was a big one for us. Islington Town Hall we did last year, which is a beautiful venue. So yeah, the live venues I really like. You know, the live shows are my favourite bit of the thing to do, I think.
I think the Garden Festival in Croatia would be up there definitely. Just for the whole kind of. I mean, I have to say I really enjoyed playing. I can't remember the name of the actual room that we played at the Warehouse Project last year. Which the Archive. That's it. Yeah. That was wicked, and we were very, very lucky to play that because we were on at exactly the right time. 5 o'clock. People had, they had to be in by a certain time, which worked perfectly for us. And I really enjoyed playing that room because for us, it was the smaller, and I prefer more intimate places. So that one for me really stood out. It was wicked. It was a massive undertaking. That, you know, the whole thing was just hats off. It's not an easy production to put together for the amount of people that were there and all those rooms and the outside, and the fact it was absolutely peeing it down and yet still people were there, like proper committed to the cause.
I mean, I'd have to go back to the Dublin shows, or I've got to say the last tour we did for the Age of the Ego album, every gig was an absolute stunner. And when we got to the end of the tour, we were sort of saying, oh, which is your favourite? Which was your favourite one? And it was really so hard to to pull out because they were all great in different ways. We pulled out the most people that we've ever seen at live shows. So I could replay that tour over and over again. I could do that, those shows, all of those shows. So I'll say that.
I think the Coco Camden one was wonderful. Although I have to say the madness of the Australia one that I told you about in a previous question or previous answer was where we had the 4 gigs crammed into 3 days, and the madness of that second gig, which was just so incredible. I think I had a big water gun as well, and I was just everything was just like manic. It was like, right, the height of, it's weird what you can feel very, very full of life, and you can have prepared yourself very well, drank loads of water, eaten well, slept well, but sometimes when you tap into this extra kind of adrenaline and a resource that you've got, which comes out of nowhere, it's actually even grittier and dirtier and better and more vibrant, and people can see it in your eyes and they're like, oh, what are we going to get here? She's an animal. So that Sydney one definitely would be one of them. But the Coco one, I think everything was just right. It was I was happy with my outfit. We had brilliant lighting. The band we were all tight, and because by nature of Coco, it's on several layers. You've got, so you can kind of look up, and I'd like to do that one again. Yeah,
there's definitely a few that I wouldn't want to relive. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, we had a really good run last year when we did the album tour for Age of the Ego, and we were lucky enough to have sellout shows for most of the gigs, and it would be, I could quite happily sort of relive any of them. The Nottingham one was fantastic. Just, we don't often play Nottingham. Played at the Brickworks in Nottingham, and that was just a real great buzz to see all our sort of crew and friends down.
Favourite thing, the free crisps? No, I'm not going to say that. I think it's that feeling of, you don't, when you're DJing and doing the sound system, you don't get it. It's that camaraderie, that team effort you have. When we are touring, we generally have like a really great crew and front of house and tour manager, and you feel like a team, a real team, and the laughs increase exponentially on that basis. It's like it's a great laugh, and it's just great having your mates with you when you're doing your things, I guess.
The camaraderie, the team. It's just, I really miss it at the minute. I love the different personalities that can come together, and if someone's on a bit of a low, you tap into someone who's on a bit of a high. You've always got someone to talk to. I mean, I think we're very lucky that the majority of the time we've got each other, and it's very rare that we're travelling on our own, although me, Jim and Toddy do have DJ gigs where we have to be on our own, and that's also good because you get to meet people one-to-one on the other side. But I do think touring together as a team of people is it's really life affirming, because you feel part of a family. It's a nice feeling, that, and you've got people to share experiences with, and when you, for example, when we went to Mexico at the beginning of the year, you have more confidence if you're with somebody else to go and walk into a town that you might not do on your own, and go into a shop that looks a little bit dodgy, but when you get in there, you just find a wonderful culture that you wouldn't necessarily tap into if you were on your own. So I love touring with the band.
I just it's something quite sort of euphoric about being in a new place that you haven't been before, and exploring cities that you've never been before. And I get a real kind of euphoric buzz out of that. So yeah, just as a kind of a side benefit from doing all these gigs, and I love the gigs. And you know, there's nothing better than being on tour with the band, because you're on tour with all your best mates, and it's amazing. But yeah, I think a little interesting little spin-off side thing is just getting a chance to experience other places, and other cultures and food and all that kind of thing. It's a real privilege.
It varies. It tends to be either a musical idea, a sample idea, or even a concept, some sort of conceptual idea about what you want to, what the end result is. So I'd say I narrow it down to those three things really. It depends how I'm feeling. If I sit at the keyboard, you're going to get something pretty musical. With the sample ideas, it's great. You can just you can get a bit more creative. So yeah, it's just how whatever's floating my boat on that day, I guess.
We don't really have a really strict. I bet the lads say something different. We don't really have a really strict formula. So quite often it can be. We've had sessions where the whole band comes together, which we were very fortunate enough to do for the last album. We hired out Gotwood in February, which was very much off peak for Gotwood, and we stayed there. We set all the stuff up and we jammed. The whole band jammed. We had 2 weeks of that, and then we took all the stuff away, all the ideas away. But the way that the ideas usually begin is either from a little sample drum beat, or it can be chords on the keys or guitar, or it can be, I've got a loop station that I have where I can kind of loop my voice up and harmonise, and it can start from anywhere really. Usually the way I write lyrics is very much dependent on the mood, what I'm being influenced by at the time, whether it's usually not political, but the last album was quite influenced by how I felt about what was going on in the world. But usually I write my lyrics as I'm singing. I don't usually take a set of lyrics to the table. That's not how I write. But it's very much a shared platform. We all bring ingredients, and then we all kind of try and move them along together. Jim and Toddy very much work on the production of the music, and I have my own ideas as well about how I think things sound. I like things sounding very raw. I don't like things sounding very overpolished. I like them raw. So if I feel the lads needs to strip back a little bit, I feel more confident now to say, I think you've taken that too far. But it's usually the three of us in the studio, experimenting.
We don't, but we have lots of different ways that start with, and we don't really have a set way we go about things, but it could start from all sorts of different routes, whether it be like someone brings in a sample that's, really, that's going to sound, this is going to got a really good starting point for a track. It could be like a riff or a chord progression that me or Jim have done, or it might be born out of a jam with the band, just someone comes up with a little idea in that sort of environment. But it's usually, I guess, there's usually a starting point where either me or Jim have come up with something at home, basically, and we'll bring it in and say, oh, I've got this really good, this like amazing drum break we found, or this percussion loop and something, and maybe put something down. And yeah, I mean, it's like I say, it's never really a set. There's not a set routine to it. It's fairly sort of intuitive, really.
I think there's various ways of getting over it. I think you can get really, really upset and frustrated, and you can panic about it, but then it perpetuates, and it's really difficult when I think you can start to turn it in on yourself and go, oh God, I'm crap, I can't do it anymore, what's going on? But it's a thing that everybody experiences, and it can just be that maybe you just need a bit of time off. Maybe you need a couple of days off. Maybe you need a week off. Maybe you're just a bit bored of music at that time, and you just need to go away and listen to something different or do something completely different. But one actual song that was born out of the back of a creative block was a song, can't remember which album it was on. I think it's Walk, Dance, Talk, Sing. I can't remember. I think it is. It's Cruel Mistress. And Cruel Mistress was about the relationship with music that you have, and it can be really great when everything's going well, but it can be really cruel when you can't get something out of your head, but you can't take it anywhere because you've just got this block. And it's a really cruel relationship when it gets there. And it messes with your head. So you have to just park it and go, do you know what? I'm not feeling it. I'm going to go away, switch off, go for a walk, take some time out. And then hopefully when I come back, things will steadily kind of, get back to normal again.
Yeah, all the time, actually. I think that's something that you over the years you get used to, and you realise that it's kind of part of the process. So it would, and it still does. It can be quite depressing when you have a creative block. And conversely, when you're being very creative and coming up with stuff, it's one of the best feelings in the world. And I think you have to, look. I think over the years, you kind of realise that you can't. Well, I can't turn on creativity like a button. It's all about throwing enough shit against the wall, and hopefully some of it will stick.
I think. Yeah, we do. I mean, I tell you what, at the beginning of this lockdown, it was so weird working on my own, obviously, and then just trying to get a vibe. And the first week, it was tough. It was like it wasn't anything happening at all. But I mean, it's happened before, and I think when you've been in the game a bit, you realise that there's always something you can be doing, even if it's not being mega creative. So if I'm not feeling it in the creative sense, what I tend to do is get on with some donkey work, and something that doesn't require me to feel fabulous or be fabulous. Just things like, mixing and file moving and organisation and that sort of thing. There's always something to be doing. So if it's not happening, I do that.
Ooh, well, that's tough. I think if you were going to push me, and I love both, but I think creating is always where it's been at for me. I just love being immersed in a, either at home or in the studio and losing myself writing music and messing about and having the freedom and not the without having, when you're on your own in the studio like that, you've got this sort of freedom to kind of do what you want and explore certain sounds or whatever, without the worry of anyone sort of over your shoulder or pissing people off and that kind of thing. So
both got a completely different aspect to them. I mean, creating it, the initial buzz when you when you get on something that you're into, that sort of few hours, which is kind of spent, mostly going like that and sort of thinking, oh, this is the nuts. That's soon replaced, by the way, by loads of doubt. In a few days, you're like, oh God, is it any good? Playing music is it's more instant. It's more. You get instant gratification for the people who are enjoying what you've written, and it's they're both a great buzz, but just very quite different.
Ooh. I mean, I love it when an idea comes together, and I love it when an idea comes together, a new song, but the process can be quite monotonous and challenging. I love that. I love that feeling when something really, you've hit on something, but nothing will replace stepping onto stage and performing. I absolutely love performing. I mean, I did suffer a little bit of burnout at the end of last year because I felt like we'd travelled a lot, and with DJing and doing the sound system and doing the live band, I was knackered, and I felt at the end of the year I was ready to just have a break. Unfortunately, the break's going on forever now, but I love performing. I think I've realised since the lockdown that what is important to me as a person, and it's human interaction, and whether anyone believes in this or not, I do think that you get certain vibrations off other people's energy, and you can walk into a room and go, oh, don't like this, I'll leave. But you can also walk into a place and just go, yeah, this is great. And I really miss performing. I really miss it.
Well, I mean, we had, I think it's a long road, and whilst we're in a position now, which is really, we're so fortunate to be in, it wasn't always that way, and probably sort of early 2000s, up to, 2000, 2005, it was really, really, it was a tough business to be in for us. And we had a couple of wobbles where we nearly didn't carry on, and it was, at that stage though, you're still learning your craft, So I mean, fortunately, with the support of people who were around us, we carried on and worked through that.
I used to really, really struggle with that button, and we're going for a take now, Danielle. Oh God! It's like the difference between, singing live, because you give it as soon as it comes out, you've given it, and there's so much more around you to buzz off and vibe off. Once you've sung that, it's gone, and you can perform well. Whereas when you record a song, that's it. It's on record. People play it, and your voice is that's it. And I used to really, really struggle. I used to really get so nervous that I couldn't get my breath. And I think I've got a lot better now. I still get really nervous about it, but I think I've got more confidence in what I can do rather than what I can't do. And I used to initially, because I've not been trained or not had any guidance, because it was always very much kind of like me believing in myself, and I didn't think I was good enough. I'd always focus on what I couldn't do. So all the notes I couldn't hit, I wouldn't go for. So I'd have to do it again and again and again. Now I think, right, you can do this. You've written the song, you can do it. So give it your best shot, and if it doesn't work out the first time, we can do it again. So
the sort of scale that we've been on, it's been financially quite difficult, because we're not, certainly in the early days, it was very much hand to mouth in terms of the money that we were getting. So it really put an edge to what we were doing, and put a lot of stress on our individual lives. And we've all got slightly different situations at home, and that puts a strain on things. But I think, yeah, just keeping going and keeping sort of mentally strong enough to kind of to deal with it. I know it's a bit vague and non-specific, but I think that's something that is an ongoing thing. We're always learning how to do that.
Well, I'm going to go really recently. Back in November, at the end of our tour, we played at. We had our own show at Brixton Electric, which we sold out, which is at 1,800 people, and I think it was. We're not great at valuing ourselves really as people, but I mean, you get to something like that, and you think, God, we're doing something right here. We definitely are doing something right, and it was a big, it's a big step up for us. That's a big crowd for us to pull in, and so I'll go back to then and say, it felt like we made a real achievement by.
Still here after 25 years. We haven't killed each other. I think I again, without the risk of sounding a bit vague, I think our biggest achievement is just that we've managed to kind of keep the enjoyment of making music. It's never become a chore. To have kind of taken our fan base with us as well, and we still got this loyal fan base, and it seems to be growing as well. That was one of the biggest kind of things to see for us last year with the tour, was that we had a lot of our older fans, but there was a lot of younger sort of kids there as well, which sort of gave us a bit of hope that we're still reaching out to people. And
I think still being here is a big achievement for us. I think still being seemingly relevant, and bearing in mind that I was like 29, 30 when I met the lads. They'd already been going for 3-4 years. So this was 20 years ago. So up until the lockdown, we were the busiest we've ever been.
Yeah.
And for someone of my age, which I don't believe age is a determination as to any, wherever you should be in life, it's how you feel about what you're doing. And I've got so much passion for what I do, but I think my biggest achievement is still feeling relevant and still being able to connect with people. Genuinely mean that every time I turn up for a gig, I'm blown away. And even I've turned up to my own DJ gigs and turned up looking like Granny Clampett, and I've gone, hi, I'm here to DJ, and they've gone, yeah, right. And I've gone, no, honest, believe me, look, what would I be here for at 1 o'clock in the morning if I wasn't?
I think the one I'm most proud of is one that was a couple of albums ago, or maybe 3 albums ago. It was called Say Goodbye, and the reason I'm proud of it was I wrote a big string arrangement for it. We recorded the strings live, and it was which I've always wanted to do. And I had a bit of an out-of-body experience when I did the string around. I wrote the string arrangement. Everything happened really fantastically. And when I listen back to those strings now, I kind of think, God, I can't actually believe I wrote that. So, as in terms of pride, I'll say that.
Option is a belter, and it never seems to get tired of that one. And it's one that we end up sort of saving for an encore now a lot of the time. It's just got a really great sort of strong kind of big chord progression from Jim. It just really resonates with people, and people hear it. Yeah, I mean it's one of a few that one springs to mind because it's just always a banker for the live shows. Option is a belter, and it never seems to get tired of that one. And it's one that we end up sort of saving for an encore now a lot of the time. It's just got a really great sort of strong kind of big chord progression from Jim. It just really resonates with people, and people hear it. Yeah, I mean it's one of a few that one springs to mind because it's just always a banker for the live shows.
I think "Reach Me," I really like, because it's a little bit different to anything else that I've personally ever written. And I really like Hot Toddy's remix of "Reach Me" as well. So I think that's a really, I really like "Stop Space Return." I think that's a real kind of disco-y. It kind of, for me, it just always sounds good to me. SOS, I quite like SOS. It's just a bit of a groove, and I kind of like grooves. Sometimes I don't like full songs. It's like quite often I don't like over singing.
Yeah.
It's like, can we not do one without too many words in it? So yeah, I think SOS off the latest album, Stop Space Return, and then Reach Me.
But the one that's coming to my mind is when we did an Australian live tour, they used to assign you a tour manager, Australian tour manager, and one of the tours we turned up and this bloke came out and he was like, he had this Iron Maiden t-shirt on and these Dickies shorts and like long hair, and he was a real fucking Australian cunt, mate, you know, fucking right, okay, and he'd just come off the Iron Maiden tour, right. And somebody had assigned him to us, and he turned up and looked at us lot, and he was just like, "Fucking hell, mate! What? Who are these? Who are these guys?" So we did this tour where at the start of it, he was just. Also, we had our mate with us, Dave Harvey, who was out with us. He just started calling Dave +1. And he had names for everybody. He had all these little quirky nicknames. Baby Cakes. He used to call me Baby Cakes. He used to call Toddy Sweet Cheeks. And we did this tour where, you know, after a gig, we'd go into one of the hotel rooms and put some music on, you know, and he'd just be, "Fuck, mate, I'm sorry, I can't listen to this. I need some distortion." And then he'd go, he'd leave. But we had this thing where there's a musical battle. But really, at the end of the tour, we became really good friends. And he said at the end of the tour, you know, "I've never done any music like this before. And I'll be honest with you, it's not my thing." He said, "But you lot are great, you know."
Other stories from tour, and when I'm put on the spot, I never remember them. And we have had some brilliant times. I think we did this one festival which was ill-fated. I think it was called Hi-Fi Festival. It was somewhere like in the home counties or somewhere like that. And it only existed for 1 year. And I remember Matt, our drummer, got really drunk and ended up having a kick-off with a band because he didn't believe that there was a band called Love, Arthur Love Lee, and Matt got in a real mood about it. And it's because he'd had a load of white wine. It was like loopy juice for him. And then I remember I was also quite inebriated. Is that? And I remember I was shouting Ian Brown, but I got his name wrong. I was calling him Ian Beale, and he was going, "Who's this dickhead?" And said, "Get her out of my hair now." And Jim had to kind of like say, Danielle, enough now. And I was going, hey, Ian Peel, which I thought was hilarious. It wasn't. Looking back at it, it was cringeworthy. But we've got it on video as well, which is even worse. We did these like Crazy P video diaries, and it's on there. And if we ever watch it back, it's just like, oh, that is painful. So I don't think I'm one of Ian Brown's biggest. Yeah, I don't think he'd let on to me again.
Absolutely not. Well, I mean, I didn't really think about whether we were doing it. So that's probably answers your question. But I mean, I think if I was asked back then, do you think you're still going to be doing this 20 years down the line? I think I'd probably be quite hopeful that we were, but I think realistically I would be thinking, no, there's not a chance, So it is amazing that we're still here doing it, yeah.
No, definitely not. I always believed in us, but it's where we are. Yeah, where we are now. It's it's a great achievement for us, and it's been a long road. I would never have. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have certainly said, nah, I don't think we'll end up where we are now. But I think our strength is we've all grown together, and we are continuing to grow together. And I still feel like musically we've got something to say. And Danny just gets better with every record. So it's none of us feel like we're finished, or that we've had enough. So long may it continue.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't know how other people feel, but I don't think you ever look too far ahead. I think you're so in the moment with it. You're so intensely about what you're creating now. I mean, it's. I think that's why it's quite difficult now. It's quite a difficult feeling because I am thinking ahead, and I don't want to, because it's about what we can do now, and that's kind of the way it's always been. I've just always kind of been so in the moment, whether it's been worrying about what lyrics I'm going to write, or excited about what lyrics I'm going to write, or thinking about what costume I'm going to wear on stage, or which city we're going to, who I can hook up with, where's our next adventure. But no way if someone would have said at nearly 50 years of age, do you think you'll be touring the world and performing to people? No way.
I think I don't go very far back on this one, but I got a mail from Giles Peterson a couple of months ago asking me to do this production job for him, which was it was pretty surreal. Wasn't expecting it, completely out of the blue, and because he'd been playing some of my records on his show, he got in contact and he said, "Oh, I want this sort of this production job doing. Would you be into it?" And I was just sort of sat there for a whole day, just sort of with a massive grin on my face, thinking, "This is it. You've cracked it. It doesn't get better than this." So I think that, meeting your peers, anything where you're meeting your peers and your heroes, and you get to work with them, and that's a good example of that. There's been a few of those over the years, something like that.
I suppose meeting Nile Rodgers was quite surreal, as he's like one of my guitar heroes of all time, and we were lucky enough to support Chic last year, or the year before, at Castlefield Arena in Manchester, and I was backstage while Chic were rehearsing, sound checking, sorry, and I was just I've got to say that, I've got to say hello to Niall. This is too good an opportunity, and I could see that he was having a laugh, and he's in a good mood. So I just sort of hung back and kind of went up and introduced myself, just said, oh, you know, we're Crazy P, we're supporting you today. It's a massive sort of blurbed a, you know, load of sort of sycophantic stuff at him. But he was really, really sweet and said, oh man, come here, gave me a hug. And yeah, that was quite lovely in a surreal moment, but a very nice one.
It was really when we played at there was a series of summer gigs in Manchester at Castlefield, and we played with Nile Rodgers Chic, and that was surreal because I remember kind of coming onto stage to sound check, and Nile Rodgers was coming off stage, and we've always called Toddy the White Nile Rodgers because of his style of guitar playing. It's like really kind of chuggy and stuff like that. And Toddy was an indie kid, and he's like picked up this. He's got a real soulful kind of vibe about him, and I remember Toddy walking up to Nile Rodgers, and I was coming up behind Toddy, and Toddy was like that, and he went, Mr. Rodgers, I just want to say I've got absolute respect for you. And I just remember seeing them both hug. And it was like, you know, this guy who I'd initially seen as a 10-year-old at Manchester Apollo hugging my bandmate. It was just a very beautiful but very surreal moment. And, you know, Manchester being my hometown as well, playing in that Castlefield Bowl. And I remember in the midst of our gig, there was a tram going across the railway. And it stopped, and everyone came to the window and waved, and I made everyone look up, and we all waved, and it was ace, and it was very, very, again, very simple, but I felt like I was tripping. It was just beautiful. So that whole day was very fantastical.
The initial concern that what would happen when people stopped buying records and everything became available to people, it perhaps hasn't worked yet. We were all shitting ourselves, but I think the way it's turned out is actually okay, and I think we get on with, you know, this sort of instant shareability, this instant gratification. It's something that, you know, it's a positive thing. You've got to look at it as a positive thing, and I think there's a lot more emphasis on creating something for the instant reaction. And I think obviously what you do in that sense tags on to what you're doing musically, and it sort of goes hand in hand. Obviously when we started out, you know, people were selling records, and it was I mean, I think my CD wallet at that stage was like a tiny one. I had about 10 CDs in it, and you know, 5 years later, I had 2 fat wallets full of CDs. Then they disappeared. Then the USB sticks came, and I don't think anything substantive has really changed. It's just the surrounding. It's the way things are done and the surrounding, you know, socials and stuff like that, which has really been a big difference from when we started out.
Still get a bit of guilty pleasure from Living on a Prayer. Can't help it.
I've got loads of these. I mean, I love yacht rock, and you know, something like Little River Band, anything by the Little River Band, I'll say, which you probably won't get much kudos for that, but, you know, sort of Michael McDonald, Doobies, nice. Anything with like a chorus Fender Rhodes in it, I'm a sucker for. And generally speaking, it's people turn their noses up at that these days, but it would have been great to be in that period. Oh god, yeah, all the time. I'm quite easily starstruck. you know. So I mean, like I say, you meet any of your peers. I mean, last summer in Croatia, I met Tony Humphries for the first time. Now, when I was growing up, I had this mixtape that I got from my mate, which was from Kiss FM 1980, New York, and it's a master mix by Tony Humphries and Shep Pettibone, and it's really phenomenal. I mean, the sound quality is crap, but the vibe in the whole mix is just amazing. So, it's never been far away from me, that mix, for years gone by, you know. So when I was in the same room as him, I was stood with Danny, and I was kind of like, oh God. He just finished playing, and everybody was sort of going over to him. Oh, Tony. I just sort of stood with Danny, going, "I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna wait for it to calm down. Then I'm gonna go over." This. She said, "All right, just go over and speak to him." So anyway, eventually, when people had dispersed, I went over and said, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Humphries. I've got to tell you, I'm a massive fan." And I told him about this mix I had, this Shep Pettibone master mix. And, you know, he was so nice. He actually told me a bit of background about it, and about how at the time that month, he said, was the month that it just blew up for him, and how crazy it was at the time. He just sort of told me these little stories about the time and about doing the mix. Just such a gentleman. So I mean, it was that's the last time I was completely starstruck. Yeah,
I had quite a weird one actually, which was. We did a gig in Bulgaria, in Sofia, and it was like it was in an old velodrome, like bike track, disused one, and Gary Cobain from Future Sound of London was doing a DJ set, and then we were all sort of sat backstage, and I was a massive Future Sound of London fan. I loved the first two albums. It was like big sort of electronic albums for me that kind of got me interested. And I was just sort of sat there, and Gary Cobain was sat next to me, and I was just sort of like kind of getting more and more agitated because I had to tell him, you know, I've got to tell this guy this, you know, he wrote this album, and it kind of got me into electronic music, and I think I was just sat there for ages, like got really, really quiet, and then I eventually sort of just blurted it out. So, Gary, I've just got to say, your album Accelerate was just amazing. It put me onto electronic music, and he just sort of looked at me and I said, "Wait, Accelerator? Oof." Like this. So
such a tough one, that, because I kind of like. You always learn from what goes wrong, don't you? I think I'd probably say just chill out a bit, and relax a little bit. Be more relaxed in your, you know, when you in your surroundings. I can juggle. Is that? I mean, I guess is that considered a talent? Yeah, okay, I'll say I can juggle. Only 3 balls, mind you. Can't do any more than that. Festival.
oh, festival,
Tour.
studio,
Live set.
Live.
Disco.
live.
Ooh, these are tough. I can't know, impossible to choose between. I mean, disco. I'll say disco because it came first.
House.
Disco.
Soul.
Soul.
Beach holiday.
City trip.
Oh God. Probably say city trip.
Oh, coffee. Tea's the devil's juice. I hate it. fell out with Mr. Scruff over that. He didn't talk to me for a couple of months when he found out I didn't drink tea. But it's coffee, definitely.
Ooh, a good cup of tea.
Tea.
Night out. They've both got their pluses, but it's a bit more exciting, isn't it?
Night out.
These days, it's definitely a night in. Got to be honest.
Thanks for your support, and hopefully we'll see you soon in a real life interface where we get to be together and dance together.
Just, I suppose, keep watching for developments on the music scene. Keep supporting music. If any of you are feeling low, just always know that there's someone out there who's feeling better than you, and pick up the phone, FaceTime, Skype, whatever you need to do, because someone will always be feeling better than you, and just try and keep the vibe alive, because it is going to get better. And we love you. Yeah,
I'd just like to wish everyone who's watching all the best, and hope everyone's bearing up in these strange times, and stay well and healthy, and just hopefully we can all keep in touch with each other with things like this, and we'll be doing some more streaming stuff, and hope to see you on the dance floor at some point in the future, in the not too distant future.